I think, waiting for. Anyway, we can go ahead if you have any questions or might be taking up. Otherwise, I can start with the Shantra. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrutavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshini. We'll take Mayadhyakshena Prakritihi Suyate Sacharacharam Hetunanena Kaunteya Jagadvi Parivartate Avajananti Mam Mudha Manushim Tanumashritam Parambhava Majananto Mamabhuta Maheshwaram. Moghasha, Mokha Karmano, Mokha Jnana Vichetasaha, Rakshasi Masurim Chaiva, Prakritim Mohinim Shritaha. So, Mayadhyakshena Prakritim. He says that the whole of the universe is permeated by me and unmanifest divinity, and all beings rest on the idea with me, within me. Therefore, really speaking, I am not present in them. Sorry. Mayadhyakshena Prakritim. Arjuna with me as a supervisor, Adhyakshena, and the nature brings forth the whole creation consisting of both sentient and sentient beings. It's due to this cause that the whole of samsara is going around. Avajananti mam mudha manushim tanmashritaha parambhava majananto mamabhuta maheshwaram. And mudhaha, that means people who do not know, not knowing my supreme nature, think low of me and overlord of the entire creation, who have put on the human semblance. That is to say, they take me who has appeared to be human garb, and they don't understand my real nature. Moghasha Mogakarmano Moghajnana Vichetasa Rakshasi Mashirim Chaiva Prakritim Mohito Shritaha. Those bewildered persons with vain hope, that means futile actions and fruitless knowledge, have embraced a fiendish, demonical and delusive nature. So let's try to understand this aspect of it. He says, Sacharacharam, that means to say Chara and Achara, everything Mayadhyakshena, it means to say it is in my Adhyakshata, all this thing has happened. Now, how do we understand this? In fact, Vedanta gives us various forms in which the creation has taken place. And various other people also have looked into these things. Like, for example, in the Bible, it is said that God created all those things and then one after the other. And therefore, this 6 days he worked incessantly. Various things are coming out of various things. So that because that it is such a huge work, such a great one thing that he has created, that's why 7th day is supposed to be resting. That 7th day is supposed to be the Sunday. Therefore, their whole concept is Sunday. God will be resting, so they will also be resting. Holiday. So come what may, that you have to be on holiday. So that gives the kind of an idea that they have. Like that, various philosophies have given various ways. In fact, in our philosophy also, it is said that the creation, how it has happened, it's like Paramatman is like the mud. It's an analogy given, like the way a potter makes a pot. And then God is like a potter, and then material is there. And with that material, he created the whole thing, like the pot. But then don't look at the pot, look at the mud. That's what is the idea. Same way, don't look at the ornament, look at the gold. So these are the two different perceptions that they have. But again, here also that it is one material changing into another material, one aspect changing into another aspect, only the shape is changed. It has some element of truth, but after all, these are all supposed to be only the analogies that they are given. And then more closer analogy by somebody like an artist is the one who says that this creation is like an artwork. A sculptor making a sculpture, it's a beautiful way that he prepares all those things, and then there is an art in that. Even though it is the same material that is there, but then you will see a beautiful picture coming out of it. The idea behind it is that there is something like a beauty hidden inside the stone, inside the metal, and then you bring it out. So that means what is hidden, you bring it out. But then deeper than that, we have the concept in the philosophy is that idea like the poet who creates a poetry. And that means ordinary words, everything that is supposed to be belong to this world only. But then when you put them together, nice poetry comes out of it. And then you feel that poetic grandeur that is there. And you wonder that where was it? It is in the way that it is integration that is bringing about this. This has got a much better idea in the sense that the whole Western approach or the whole material approach has been you decipher and try to find out where from this comes. So that's how they went on deciphering the smaller and smaller particles and all that from there. That must be the building block on which the whole thing has been built. So this is question, just the way that the modern science approach is there, and their whole penetration is also in trying to find out what is there hidden inside by breaking open that you try to go inside. Last time also I was sharing with you the idea that this way when you do it, you can find out finer material that's there inside, but you do not go anywhere beyond. Not only that, in the process that you lose the the beauty that was there in the whole product itself, like the way that the beauty of a rose, you take the rose into the lab and then you can find out that these are all the material that is there in the lab, which make the rose. But then in the whole process, the most important aspect for which the rose is meant, and that's what is its beauty, and that itself is lost. So you are given up that aspect of it. Essential part is lost in the process. So it's not by division, but it is trying to see it as united as one thing. Then they can really find out. That's what is the idea of an artist. Poet, of all the artists also, the poet is supposed to be somebody looks to be putting the words together in such a way that they are the commonplace, common useful words that we are using. The concepts seem to be also very common that we use in the normal course of time, but the way that it has been put in such a extraordinary thing, gift, that it tries to enrich the whole material concept together, and then in the form of something extraordinary of a concept will come out of it. So, and it gains such a reality that's how all these relationship, all the gods and goddesses, and all the transformation that has taken place from within has been suggested in the process of this kavi. And that is also the kind of a idea is given that even the rishi is supposed to be an extension of kavi. So rishi is somebody who is given all the scriptures, and they are somebody who is giving of a higher dimension. Like a kavi can only create a poet, beauty in that, and value in that, virtue in that, and all those things he can create by his poetry. But then Rishi is somebody who can create the divinity within. That means to say it is something which is basically far beyond that ordinary simple kind of thing. But even this creation itself, like a kavi, at that level when you do the creation, it's not that kavi who is doing the creation, the individual, but the individual is not there, therefore the creation takes place. We have such beautiful examples that there were poets, when they were writing poetry, they're absolutely oblivious about the world outside because their senses were not functioning anything outside. Not only that, what we see that their senses are not responding to the stimulus that is there outside, but more important thing is their inside also has become so uh, beyond all this kind of thing, and their whole hovering is at a different level beyond the senses, and that's what is the thing that they show, how that it looks like that their ego is not there, somebody else is there doing all kinds of things. It's a divine power which is going to be doing all those things. An unknown factor, unknown power, that's what created the whole thing. In the case of Rabindranath Tagore, one of the greatest poets, and also of the recent times, are the Kalidasa, the earlier poet, Bhagavad. These are the examples where they say that when they were creating, that it suddenly used to be like something like a dawn of some unusual, unknown force that has come upon them. And then with that aspect of it, they were creating. The individual was not there. Like somebody asked Rabindranath Tagore that, see, your poetry is so extraordinary. So wherever, but do you find that there were some places where it has lost its luster to some degree? Then Tagore said, yes, in my poetry, wherever extraordinary gems are there, that has happened when I was not there. Only the divinity was present. Whenever I came there, the quality came down. That means basically that the I is not there when that extraordinary creation is coming up. So all other things, what we call it as a creation, the world, they are not truly creation. They are only assembly of various things. That you assemble various parts, you assemble various concepts together, then you create the material in the world outside. So the whole of material world and the world, material objects in the world outside, they are not creation. They are only assembly. They are just putting them together, and so that you know the laws of the universe, laws of the material. Then you put them together. Laws will function. The things will happen. Like the way that an automobile is created because of that they understood the laws of that fluid which converts itself into energy, and then they provided all the necessary systems to see that that is creation take place and what automobile is created. So all these things are not really creation. These are just understanding these principles and then putting them into assembly, and then that assembly work is there. Today man can send man on the moon, a vehicle landed on the moon. All this thing was possible because it was all it was actually a intellectual work. It's nothing to do with the creation. Creation is something which is beyond. A rose plant giving rose flower is a greater creation than these ideas coming into existence in the form of some automobile and some things like that. So therefore, that is something which is extraordinary. And this is where basically the idea comes that whatever that you assemble and then get the whole thing, it all belongs to the material world outside. And what is something which is just not the combination of only essence, the combinations, but the elements, but it is much more than that that you could see. And that's what is the flowerness of the flower is something which is extraordinary. So this is what you transcend the intellect and go beyond. So you need to transcend the intellect so that you can reach that who is supposed to be creator. Now the question comes that therefore this creator is somebody who is beyond, and but he is there behind all those things. Like I said, in the small little rose plant, a rose flower coming itself is a beautiful creation. A child taking birth and then growing, every bit of it is a beautiful creation aspect of it. The child is not given basically the principles of what is mechanism, what is involved in that. how to get up and how to stand up and do it. No, his own enthusiasm within him and his own capacity to see that I can stand on my feet and then balance it are the things which bring about the beauty of the child standing up. So there is a, you see, the whole thing, it is coming from within somewhere. This is what the Indian philosophy said, that this creativity is something which is of this nature, which comes from within. But then how does he do it? How God has created. But then there is one important thing he says, that mayadhyakshena satatam prakritim suyate natasata hetunanena kaunteya jagadve parivartate. That means to say anena hetuna. That means to say my hetuna. Because of my presence this happens, but only thing is that I'm not in that. The idea is parivartate. That means it's constantly going on. And viparivartate, that's a beautiful thing that he has used. Jagat viparivartate. It's not that one time I created and left it. It's constantly happening because of my presence that is there. What is constantly happening with his presence? One of the closest examples from the modern science is something where it is like, we know today it is that God does not involve, but then it happens in his presence. It's like the way that the catalyst being there between matter, and then the creation takes place between the matter. Like, for example, hydrogen and oxygen put together will not become water. Hydrogen, oxygen, with a catalyst of some heat that is there, electricity that is there, through which then it becomes like water. But then in the process, what happens is that when you divide the water, all that what you find out is the is hydrogen and water, but then there is nothing is there behind it. But then that electricity is the one which is creating the whole thing. Many times what happens is to create the catalyst or the ignition key, which has really created the whole thing, is necessary for the ignition, but afterwards it does not continue. But here he says that I'm always there. I'm always there. Prakritim hetunanena kaunteya jagad viparivartate. So this is something which is happening all the time, and the cycle is going on in this world. So in which case, that means to say, even at every point of time, it is that I am there within that. But it is not just like only the starting point, it's an ignition point, but something which is throughout. And this concept is not there in the way that Indian philosophy only talked about this in that sense. And they have given several examples to try to give us that ornament and the gold and this and that kind of thing. But in all those cases, that there's a lack of idea that the object becomes matter, the object becomes lifeless, but then there is behind that there is something which is consciousness. So what's the way that you bridge these things? The first of all, the idea that Indian philosophy has given very clearly, that it is not the matter out of which that consciousness is born. The I is born. The second thing is that the consciousness is the base of the universe and on which all these things are born. Now, when the moment that you say that something is bound by becoming like that, even in presence of a catalyst, it has to happen. The idea is that it looks like that there is a bondage there. There is a bondage behind this electricity, behind the matter, so that bondage is something which is still there. But then that is the idea of matter, which has got the bondage, will not bring about consciousness, which is supposed to be the freedom. That's why Indian philosophy always said that it is the consciousness which is the base of the universe. Why? The simple reason is that consciousness is identified with the freedom. It is freedom. It is not bound by anything. And ultimately, it is that free will which prevails as the form of divinity or consciousness. Now, what is that ultimately that you think of that freedom is? The real freedom at the ultimate level is that freedom where what has the freedom can give up its freedom to become something of a lesser freedom. So therefore, all this classification that has been done from the consciousness down to the matter, it all happened because the consciousness, which is supposed to be the total freedom, has also an ability to give up its freedom to become something of a lesser freedom. So, right that way, when you look at this particular thing, it makes such a big sense that the whole creation, whether it is ultimately at the level where it is matter, supposed to be achara. That means absolutely no. Chara is something which is moving. Now, so like for example, that if a stone is there, where a lizard that is there around the stone doesn't even bother about that stone, doesn't look at the stone. Whereas the moment you tie that small little stone to a rope, a small little thread, and then gently move that stone in front of that lizard or whatever it is, immediately its attention goes directly towards that stone, becomes curious. Why is it moving? That means to say the movement will recognize the movement. Movement recognizes the non-movement. So that means to say that movement is created by something who is an observer there, and that's what is the consciousness. So that means to say a lizard has not only the matter, because the body is there, but together with that, there's also a bit of consciousness in the form of being able to observe, being able to watch. Once you stop moving the stone, it just stays there. Then again, the lizard is not interested in that. Nothing is important for that. It just leaves it alone. So that means to say that the movement is there hidden inside that. Therefore, it sees. If a small little lizard that you think of, that consciousness is there, which is the one which is observing. Experiencer is beautiful, is finally, it is of the consciousness. So consciousness is experiencing, consciousness is something which can see that, which can perceive that. The same way that when you look at it, human being is a spectrum of this consciousness. Deep inside he is this consciousness, and then outside it's all this. And this consciousness, what we have within, is supposed to be the God, divinity. That you call it as God, fine. So that means to say my eyes, physical eyes are there, maybe physical body, but then who is that using it? It is the divinity which is using it. So therefore the consciousness behind that is the one which is seeing that. The consciousness is touching. The consciousness is something which is working through all these limbs. So this way it becomes much more easy to understand that it is the consciousness which is there whole, and then it becomes like something which is of a lesser and lesser degree of consciousness. So this is possibility by which the creation has been done. But reversal is not possible. Reversal is not possible in the sense that I cannot ask my physical body to become like consciousness, my bones to become like consciousness, because it is basically, it is unidirectional. It is one dimension that through which lesser and lesser degree of freedom. But finally what happens? The moment that the job is finished, then everything merges to its own elements. So therefore, it's like the way that you are asking for the curds to become milk. Milk can become curds, that's right. But then curd to become milk, it's impossible, it cannot happen. Therefore, the water flowing down from the Himalayas down to the ocean, yes, it can really flow downwards towards the ocean, but you can't ask the water to go in the upward direction. Only thing that can happen is that water has to change its whole structure, and then it is the consciousness has to again take it back into the idea, the top of the hill, Himalayas, so that the water starts flowing. So it's a cycle. The same with the cycle that a man ends the moment that he feels that he cannot use this instrument. He is not going to convert this instrument back towards the origin, but he just leaves it and then let it go into all the five elements, and once again he comes back at the highest level. So this is how the consciousness is downward journey to become man, and then therefore the end of it is the death for this particular body. But it does not mean the journey of consciousness has stopped. comes back again. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, earlier sutra, Abrahma Bhuvana Lokat. In the 8th chapter, he says that everything is Punaravartin Arjuna. It has to come back. It's not reversing, but it is to come back again. And this process that's going on. So therefore, it is what is really, I feel that of all the theories that are there, earlier people used to use the idea of mud and pot, idea of gold and the golden ornaments. Or they said even the artist making like an art, kavi and all those things. All these ideas are there. But much more than that, scientifically speaking, I feel that the argument that it is the consciousness which is there, becoming all this complex personality to the gross level, and that can easily be understood by our these Indian philosophy. So that is how we look at this whole thing in the form of matter becoming, consciousness becoming matter. It is this progression that's going on. And hetunanena kaunteya jagat viparivartate. See, parivartana is something which is a transformation that is taking place. But viparivartana is the way that it is not just only the transformation, and it is continuously going on in the form of a cycle. The cycle is continuously happening. This concept of cycle is extraordinary, and going back to the consciousness, not in the reversal way, but in the form of that completing the cycle, going back. This is happening. So, avajanantimam mudham manashim tanmashtam param bhava majananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Mudha, people who do not understand that, avajananti, that means to say, they look at me. When this creation is taking place in this way, now somebody can identify himself. Somebody can identify himself to be the consciousness or to be the body. Normal people identify with the body, prana, and that aspect of it. But what Krishna says is that he is somebody who is identified with that consciousness. See, from outwardly looking, he has to use the same body, he has to use the same expressions and same way that he, and whatever that is necessary for the body he has to give. And these are the things which Krishna is also doing, like anybody, Arjuna is doing, or anybody. But what happens is that ordinary person, avajananti, that means to say, not knowing about this, bhuta maheshwaram param bhavam ajanantaha mudhaha. These are the people who are the mudha is not, as last time also I was saying, that it is not just only the people who do not have the knowledge, which in English we call it as ignorant, but the ignorant, rather than calling it as ignorant, is people who don't have knowledge. That is a simple thing. And the child is there who is born, does not know anything. And so being born without any knowledge is something which is not any negative, and it's just ground zero to start with. And then why I don't want to call it as the idea of ignorant in English is that noun form of ignorant is ignore. That means I just don't care for that. But then look at the children, they never ignore. They're very positive. In fact, they're very curious. They are much more absorbing than a blotting paper, that they can absorb anything. In fact, that's the reason why we have to be very careful when you deal with the children, because they just absorb whatever that you say, it goes into their heart. So therefore, basically, it is not that they're ignoring. They're very, very open to the ideas. It means to say, they don't have the knowledge, but they're very positive. This is the idea. But mudha is the person who is doesn't have the knowledge, But he is not positive about learning, that he is negative, just because that he says that I know everything. So therefore, basically, what is the point in my looking for that? So there is no positivity in him, and he thinks that he knows it, and then there is nothing else that he should know it. So the kind of blocks that is there in the case of Mudha, the people who are, they actually, that means to say not only that they have ajnana, but they also have an ego of jnana, which is not there. In fact, in the Daivi Sampata, Asari Sampati also uses that word, Abhimana Dambha. Abhimana is somebody who has it, but then he is boastful of it. But then Dambha is he doesn't even have it, but then he is boastful about what he does not have. So both these people are supposed to be the people who are mudhaha. They are at the level of mudha, and manushim tanumashritam. They also say that I am also dependent on the body. This and that. A thorn pricks an ordinary person, a thorn pricks Buddha also. Just because the thorn pricks Buddha, that means to say that Buddha is no great and Krishna is no great. So, avajanantimam mudham, without knowing about my nature of that, these mudha, they take me that they don't understand what is the greatness that's there within me. And then, because that I am in the human body, look at me at the human body only. And mom, tanumashritam, manushim tanumashritam. That means to say, I'm also depending, like Rama was also having this body, which is like a human body. Unfortunately, what people have created is that these incarnations, that they have a very special kind of a thing. They are not like us. That is kind of a thing that they are given. But this sutra very clearly says whether it is Krishna or Rama, they are like any other human being only. Deal with them as other human beings only. Only thing is that they have something extraordinary. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa also was in the totally human body. And the body, which is supposed to get all kinds of problems, also it will have it. You don't deny it. So, like when Ramakrishna slips, falls down, he also takes support of the hand, and then the hand breaks, like it's a human body. And naturally, when you take suddenly you put a hand in the impact, then it breaks. It happened in the case of Ramakrishna. So then he had the fracture was adjusted and then they put a sling. Before that, Ramakrishna fell down and then he broke his arm. The hundreds of people used to come to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa thinking that, yes, he is a special person. He talks to God all the time, Kali Devi all the time, and then all that. It brought flock of people, and then hundreds of people used to come. Suddenly Ramakrishna fell down and broke his hand. Same person, same way, Dakshineshwar temple, he was sitting on that cot in his room. But then suddenly what happened is all these hundreds of people who were there just vanished. Only 15, 20 of them who were there. Genuine sadhakas who remained there. That means basically that others were expecting that he should not be having that kind of a feeling like human being. As if he does not, he should not have bone broken and he should not feel the pain of the bone and all those things. Actually, how absurd it is. He comes to the human form to experience all the human experiences that are there. Then only he can understand the other's pain, other's suffering, and he can be compassionate to the others, and he can give that that consolation to the others, because that he is like another human being. If he is not like that, then very easy that we don't understand that, all those kind of things. In fact, that's what in Mahabharata also that Draupadi says. She's eagerly waiting for before, after they finished Ajñatavasa, when they came back, at that time she was waiting for Abhimanyu to come because she wanted to see him. Almost like 15 years that she did not see him. so eager. And Krishna comes and Abhimanyu did not come along with him. He comes, he's coming from behind. He says, "Hey, why are you so eager? In fact, you are always waiting for me, and now suddenly I became second citizen, and you like to see Abhimanyu and not me." How can you understand a mother's feeling for the child like that? She says. At that time, Krishna replies so beautifully. He says that, no, I just wanted to get the beautiful, blissful experience of a mother meeting the child after such a long time. And the kind of a love relationship that is there, extraordinary. Don't think that I don't understand that. I understand it very much. That's the reason why I come back to the born as a child in a mother's womb, carried 9 years, 9 months in the mother's womb, and then taking birth. If I want to change the world, I can sit there in Vaikuntha and change the whole thing. I did not have to come because I understand this relationship. This is something which is extraordinary. That human relationship, human understanding, that's what basically brings God to take care of human being. So people think that just because that I understand the human being, human feeling that I have, I'm not a God, but I am simple, ordinary human being. It's not all this philosophy that's there behind it, the whole creation. Therefore, when they do it that way, what exactly happens is that avajanantimam mudham manushim tanumashritam parambhava majananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. So, whatever that extraordinary thing is that they slip, they forget about the whole thing. They take me to be an ordinary human being. It not only happened in the case of Krishna, it happened in the case of Jesus Christ very seriously. When he was being crucified, you just imagine somebody's hands, they were putting the nails and somebody was fixed on the cross. At that time, the disciples who were there, they always were waiting that Krishna, Jesus Christ is God, so he'll just reveal and he will destroy all these people, evil people and all that. He will come out and show himself that he is God. So all that, and is Son of God, all that he will, they're waiting for him, a miracle to happen, a change to occur. Unfortunately, what happened is that a lot of people that they associate with the divinity with the miracles. Somebody produces some vibhuti, somebody produces something, immediately become God. Not only that, people ask this question also that you should not suffer. The other day also somebody was asking, how do you explain about Ramakrishna suffering the throat cancer? Ramana Maharshi cancer on his abscess, and then Vivekananda dying early. I said, they are human beings. Don't forget about that. So, and yes, they go through all those things. We have wrong notion about that. So they are like any other human being. Take them as human being and see that when Jesus was being fixed on the cross, then he was crying out of pain. And in between, he was also losing his consciousness, but again, become conscious, excruciating pain. Only the person who realized all those things was Mary Magdalene. She comes running. And then she just looked at all these people and then she felt so sad. Why these people are just looking there, not bringing down the Jesus Christ on the cross. And then she went there and then she removed, all that thing and then brought the cross down, released Jesus Christ, kept his hand in her lap, nursing him, nursing the wounds, trying to make him feel comfortable. Yes, the comfort is necessary. And then now the miracle happened. That's what the poet says in one place. Miracle happened. What is that miracle that happened? Jesus died like an ordinary human being. That dying as a ordinary human being is the miracle that Jesus has shown. In spite of the fact that he has all that wisdom, everything that was there, he followed the body dharma. These are the people who respect the body. They don't want to transcend the body that way. But then they respect the body. They allow the body to follow its dharma. So therefore, on one side that I am following the body's dharma, after all, why the body dharma that we respect is that This body made us to manifest our divinity through this. And it has this ability, it has all this potential to see that such an extraordinary thing can be created out of this. We have to respect this as a temple of God. And then all these things are there. Then what we need to see is that what is that beyond? It's like the way that this body is like the ingredients in the test tubes in the lab. But then the beauty of the flower that is there beyond the test tubes that is there is what the divinity that comes out from, whether it is Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, Rama or Krishna, anybody, all that comes about is that. In the sense that even whatever that I am perceiving is also that it's not that my individual, but it is the consciousness which is perceiving through my eyes. It is the consciousness which is perceiving through my ears. But then what happens is that these filters are not so pure. Therefore, I don't see the divinity. Whereas such a person who sees the divinity is the person who is the person like Krishna. That's why I could say that it's not that Krishna, the individual who is there talking, but it's the divinity which is talking. So then another very important aspect is that until the level of body, mind at level, it still follows a certain laws. At the moment it follows certain laws, that means to say it is bound. It's a bondage. And whatever that has bondage, whatever that follows certain laws, is all matter. And it is not that, it's nothing which is beyond the matter. So if I consider myself to be the body following certain laws, and then the same thing that I see in the world outside, also I don't see divinity. That's when Jesus Christ said, forgive them a lot, they don't know what they are doing. That means he was looking at the others also as the matter, and because he was feeling himself to be the matter, the pain and all those things. But the moment he sees Son of God, he became that, then he says, forgive them a lot. That means at that time the transcendence has taken place beyond that. So when Krishna says that all these things have to happen, that means it's from that freedom, degree of freedom, all these things happen. And that he could see it only when he identifies himself with that consciousness. And from that plane he is talking. There is absolutely no kind of a confusion, no kind of any cover on that. It's totally pure. It's like a clear glass through which that you can see the other side. Even the idea glass is also there in between is not there. It's as clean, as clear as that. Many times it happens like that. The glass is there, the door is shut, but then you don't realize the door is there because the glass is so clean that you don't see anything on the other side. You don't see the glass, you only see everything on the other side. That's the reason why that pure clear glass doors and windows, they try to put some sign to show that yes, there is some obstruction on the way here, so that people do not bump into it. They clear very clearly. So one who has confusion, one who has cloud on that, cloud is called as megha or moga, and your whole aspect is now trying to look into clearing this aspect of it which is there outside. That's what is the next sutra that he talks about. Let me look into it. Another very important aspect is that, as the earlier thought that I gave, that until the level of body and mind, when you look at your mind, you look at your intellect, everything is within the idea of assembly. It's not creation. That means you put few things together and that becomes like an assembly. Real creation has not taken place. Assembly is various objects that are there, you try to put them together. Like for example, a vehicle, automobile, say, there's a combination of various things, both in terms of the engines that are there, various parts, engine parts that are there put together. Similarly, various aspects of the energy that is there put together, like the way that a kinetic energy, and then the gas that you put is like a liquid form of an energy, and then convert one energy to another energy, but it is within that particular framework of that energy which we are working. Framework of the matter, framework of the energy, that is what we are working together. But these things, both these things are not something which is beyond. In fact, that's why earlier science thought matter and energy separate, but then later on found out that energy and matter, they are not separate, but they are something which is connected with each other, the same. So therefore, whatever that you manage with the help of the arrangement of matter, arrangement of energy put together, the machine is created so that therefore it is mechanical. It's all only assembly aspect of it. And in assembly, one thing is worn out, you can replace another thing, and then you can still continue to run. And at one point of time, when everything is worn out, then you just throw it away, bring another machine. But then who creates that matter machine and who is there behind the machine is another person who is there. So it's man-made. All these things are man-made, and then man makes all these things. It's nothing to do with the creativity. The creativity is something which comes, which is spontaneous, which is from beyond. It's not just matter combination. It's something which is hidden behind the matter, which is something which is responsible for that. Like, for example, what makes this flower to become a flower? And what makes that few tunes together become like a music? What makes something extraordinary? And that's what basically the creativity. So Kavim Purana Manushasitaram, when he says that Kavi, and then somebody who is all the time there, and also Rishi, when they talked about, is somebody who is directly in connection with that, contact with that creative force. And this is what where consciousness is coming from. It is that force where the creativity is there. So it's not that you are putting the ideas which are already there and then you are conveying that ideas, but it is something which uniquely that you bring about, you just, the whole thing that comes up from within, deep inside. It's like the way flower flowering. It's like the way a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. The whole thing comes out of him. This is what is idea of realized person. And the rest of them, Moghasha, Mogha Karmano, Mogha Jnana Vichetasa, Rakshasi Masurim Jaiva, Prakritim Mohinim Shritaha. So that means those who are not in this pursuit, in this direction, trying to go into that highest, that the consciousness level, and then they are the desire at the ordinary simple level, and then the karya, the work that they are doing is mogha karmanam. That means to say ordinary simple. Uh, it's all futile, and so that it's a. It looks to be very big, very great, but then at the same time, these are all short-term benefits. They are necessary, very good, fine, but then we should realize that they are for the short-term benefits, not for the deeper benefit, higher benefit. And this mokha karmana, that you do all those things, karmano, and then mokha jnana, and then whatever that is connected with that kind of knowledge, vichetasaha. There is no question of chetana behind it. There's no, they don't have the idea of chetana behind it. Yeah, life goes on. Life has to go around these things. Vichetasa, Rakshasi Masurim Chayeva. Asuras and Rakshasas. It says Asura is the person who does not have the beauty or the shining of what is called as the goodness. See, that means to say it is not because they do the things out of love, compassion, sacrifice. These are the aspects of it that's not loaded by that. Sura is that, and Asura is that one who do not have that. And then Rakshasim, that means to say they can also become violent, they also become self-centered, they become egoistic, all that they have is becomes like an egoistic. Rakshasim, Asurim, and what is the basic idea? Moha, Mohinim, that means to say, Mohinim, Prakritim Mashitaha, that means to say, they they are totally into this yoga maya. Prakriti is this yoga maya, or the maya that's of the creation that is there, and then they get caught up in this, and then they're enamored by this kind of a thing, whatever that is there in the created world that is there, not for the creation, but in the manifested world outside. They get caught up in these things, and then they will be dependent on that, they'll be holding on to that. What's the problem with them is that two things are problem that says that Asurim is also one more idea saying that then it's a short-lived. They don't have long life. So therefore that they have to come back again. Second thing is Rakshasim. That means to say they're so self-centered. They're so bound themselves to this. So their whole focus is in the outwardly direction towards the material world. So therefore, these are the people who are Moghashaha, Mogha Moghajnana, Vichetasaha, Rakshasi Masurim Jaiva, Prakritim, Mohitim, Mohinim Shitaha. They are from the level of, say, ordinary people, good people, all right, but to the level where they can be bad, evil. Why he put all these things together is the moment that when we don't have the spiritual background behind it, Daivi Sampat behind it, Daivi approach is not there behind it, slowly what happens is that when the matter becomes more and more important and takes a central stage, then slowly all that what happens is that we can even sacrifice our values of life, sacrifice our morality for sake gaining that. This is when they become like Rakshasim. Rakshasim are the people who can easily set aside their moral qualities for sake of gaining at the material level. You have to, if we have to save ourselves from that, we have to have the Daivi Sampat or the upward direction, and that's where we need to see that the goal idea should be a total inner freedom, and that's what is the consciousness. That's what is Krishna's idea about when he says that it is they reach me. These are people who reach me. The rest of them, they are called Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartinojana. They are connected with that. This is the level that we need to get into. And we have that examples here. And after this, Krishna gives idea of what is this journey in the upper direction we need to make. We'll see in the next sutras. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.